This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. A rainy, drizzly day here, and other people in the rest of the world will be tuning in, and some will be saying it's the evening, and some the afternoon, and ours is the morning. And it is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, or I am Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, that's better English, and I'm the voice of Respectonomics, and joined with my co-host, Sarah Benton. And I'll say on this rainy morning, good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Okay. And what we're talking about this morning it's a sort of a life issue, I think you'd call it, although it migrates into all parts of what we are doing, whether we're talking socially, business, family, faith organizations, whatever. The subject is the highway of life. And one of the things I find interesting is when we put a title to these messages, it is remarkable how you start thinking about the different things that tie into the highway of life. And it could be another title and we'd have the same kind of experience of looking around. And I'm just going to not challenge, but say to people, sometimes just write down a statement of anything you can think of and then play with it. And just look at it and enjoy the ride that comes out of it. If we're going to talk about a highway, we can talk about a ride. And we're talking about, in this case, you're talking about what's called mind mapping, when you take an idea and you just let it migrate, move into other parts of living. The highway of life, though, let's be central to the point. The highway of life is, the part I'm going to take us all to is the business of when I get onto the highway. In other words, when I'm driving my car. And the first thing you generally do is when you're going on a trip, whatever it might be, short, long, or medium, you are planning to go to a destination.
Right.
Generally speaking. Now, I'm going to make a special point on this because I'm going to say 25 years ago, and you may, Sarah, have a different number on this. But do you remember how we used to go for Sunday afternoon drives? Did you ever do Sunday afternoon drives?
Yes.
Yeah, to go nowhere in particular, just to gaze around.
Go and see, yes.
Yeah, go and see.
Change of scenery.
It's a comment on life today that same Sunday afternoon drive is much more difficult to do. Our lives have become fuller and more complicated, so we don't actually have that sort of what are we doing this afternoon feeling.
Right.
And on top of that, the experience of driving has changed. If you recall that Sunday afternoon drive, there weren't many cars around. You could stop without anybody bothering you.
Right.
And, it was just an easier pace. So we have to be recognizing now when we're talking about the highway of life, we're actually talking about a very busy highway. We're talking about a highway where we're being drawn both physically and mentally in many different directions. So with that in mind, the idea is, and what we're going to focus on is, the trip that we're taking on the highway is in fact to a destination. Now, in order to get to that destination, we have to get in the car. To get into the car, we have to make preparations. The preparation, the two that are central to driving a car for all of us. The first one is having a key in your pocket. And the second one is having your wallet with you, which explains or verifies your license and insurance and all that other stuff. So if you agree with me that to get into the car, to make it go, we need both the key and this wallet, I'm putting to us that that's true of life. That when we go out, first of all, we need the destination. Where are we heading to? Secondly, we need to have a key to life. Now, that key to life is one that, frankly, goes back to the most ancient of times of looking to see what is the key to life. It's a huge question and maybe beyond the orbit of Respectonomics, but I think it's a question that we are entitled to ask one another, what is the key to life? And then we need also to think about, so what is it that I need in my wallet that permits me to drive? What is it that I need that says, yeah, you can do it? So let's look at the three things here. I'm going to start off with what's in my wallet. In my wallet is my driver's license. And what that means is I am very fortunate. I've had driver's education. I've had some experience on the road. I've had mums and dads and uncles, aunts, friends, farmers, and whatever showing me how to drive across different terrain, whether it's on a busy road or whatever it might be. So I think when we look at the highway of life, one of the things to remember and to recollect is the amount of information we have that we've experienced from other people. It's just a straightforward act of gratitude that to be on the highway of life, many people have got me there. So that's the wallet, if you will, the driver's license. Then I'm going to look again now at the issue of the key. And when you look at the key to life, it is something that you have to be able to say, what is the key to life? What is it that's going to get me to where I want to get to? And I believe, we believe, our Dignity Trust believes that one of the most important, you might even call it your gasoline, is in actual fact your dignity. When you have your own sense of dignity, you can travel a lot further than anybody else. And you can travel in peace, you can travel in comfort, you can travel with purpose, you can travel in fun. But without that self-dignity, it's very difficult to be on the road. If you're on the road and you're driving and you're having multitudes of doubts and you're questioning everything as you're driving along, you're very likely to end up with an accident.
Right.
It's not a happy place. And you get to work when you've had that kind of experience, and the first thing you say to yourself is, I am exhausted. So bringing oneself back to oneself and looking at this key to life and the shape and form of one's dignity, I think is the finest gasoline you can put and I can put in our tank. Does that resonate with you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've now got dignity in the tank. And now we've realized that so many people have brought us to the point where we can drive on the road. And that's because of all the people that were behind us. And now we're going to talk about the destination. And I want to emphasize the destination of life. Because when you got into that highway, several things happened. First of all, you had to be aware of other people on the road. And I'm not answering the question about the destination of life. You have to listen to 2 or 3 other bits that go before that. Are you okay with that?
Okay with that.
Okay. I'm not going off at tangents, I promise you. But what I'm doing here is I'm now on the road. And the first thing I have to explain to myself is I'm in the right-hand lane and there's a truckload of cars coming the other way. And I have a question for you, Sarah. On the whole, do those other cars coming the other way bother you? On the whole. They're in their lane, they're going at their correct speeds and all that kind of stuff. But they're coming, all these cars, the oncoming traffic, as we call it, is
Right.
there. But other than you being guarded about it, it's not something you spend a lot of time thinking about because there's double yellow lines and there's all kinds of barricades.
Awareness around it. And
Yeah.
there's a sense of confidence, or our hope is that other people are going about their travels with the same awareness or
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Exactly. Well, here's my point, very much along the lines of what you've just said. And that is, when I'm traveling and there's cars coming the other way, they don't actually bash into me, correct? Generally. Generally. I mean,
No, we're asking the wrong person.
I know that. I know you've
But
had it.
yes, generally speaking, the hope
Yeah,
is that people are
yeah,
not crushed. Yes.
yeah. I
Correct.
mean, to use a rather a silly word, we've all had prangs. It's not a word you hear very often. But, when your car's got some damage to it, you say, oh, you got pranged up. Well,
Mm.
anyway, but the point I'm getting to is this, a serious comment, that you think of the enormous number of cars that are coming, that make up your oncoming
Yes.
traffic over the years that didn't collide with you, correct?
Correct.
Those are your problems in life. Those are your anxieties. And we start thinking about all of these things that are coming at us, and they never collide with us.
Mm.
They pass on, they go on their merry way, and they bother somebody else. So
Right.
when you're on the highway of life, the oncoming traffic is kind of like our problems. 98% of them go away.
Mm-hmm.
They go past us. So that's a reassuring start to my trip on the road. The next thing on the road is, and you've already hinted at this, is the sense of law and order.
Right.
We talk about speed and we talk about being under influence and so on. And that again is, as far as one's life is concerned, what a great metaphor on life. That we don't allow ourselves to become contaminated. We don't allow ourselves to be thinking, gosh, I must go faster. If you go back to that Sunday afternoon drive, one of the great pleasures was stopping where you felt like it
Right.
and looking where you felt like it. And life is like that. We do not need to have our foot on the accelerator all the time. And the next thing is that when you think about your where you're going, you need to go there with clear vision.
Hmm.
I mean, can you imagine somebody getting some soap or some eggs or something and wiping them all over your windshield? You wouldn't have a clue where you are.
Right.
So you want to have a clear view of your future, of your expectations. And one of the things that's really critical to this is I want you to get into your car and take out a measuring tape and tell me one thing. Which is bigger, the windshield or the rear view mirrors or the side mirrors? Which is the biggest? There's your testing question for the day. And a straightforward answer, of course, is the windshield is the biggest window of the lot.
Hmm.
And that's your eye on the future. How
Right.
often do we go into the future looking in the rear view mirror and thinking of all the contempt we have and the spite and the hurts and all those things? They are actually in the past. Love it or leave it. What matters is the vision that you have in front of you. And the windshield is much bigger.
Hmm.
So we have the right to be looking, excuse me, not only at the distance ahead of us, but also at the breadth. If you think about it, the rear view mirror is very narrow,
Hmm.
whereas the windshield is not only forward thinking, but it is also, there's a proper word for it. It's not ambient, but it's that, what's that called when you have eyes, you have vision to the left and your right? What's that? There's a proper word.
Peripheral.
Hmm?
Peripheral.
Yeah, your peripheral. So you have not only length, but you have peripheral vision as well.
Hmm.
So what I'm getting at is that windshield in life is really important. Now, the next thing is this. So we've cleaned the windshield. We've got a sense of the future. And you may be wondering, what is it that I'm driving at? What is that destination? Well, we've got one more thing we have to look at, Sarah. Can you bear with me one more little bit, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that is there's a barrier between the oncoming traffic and possibly even with the lanes we're in. But those barriers are very, very important because those barriers protect us. But that protection is something we have to be very careful about because you can have a barrier and feel that you can ignore, you can even be insulting to the people in those other lanes. That barrier creates a sense of almost false protection.
Mm.
If you take away those barriers, you become far more mindful of other people, far more mindful of the speed they're going at and the traffic and the volumes and so on. So in our lives, we don't want to look at barriers necessarily as protection, but to make sure that we're not using barriers as some kind of scapegoat. I
Mhm.
don't have to think about the other person. Yes, you do.
False
I
sense
do.
of security or false sense of comfort,
It's a
right?
precisely. So the last thing I'm saying before we get to the final one is we talk about how many times have you gone to work or gone to the grocery store, whatever, and you've said to yourself, do I have time? And we start getting into that thing about I've got 15 minutes to get to A, B, or C to get to the dentist's office. And you're in this mad rush. And one of the keys to life is not to be rushing. One of the keys is to say, if it's going to take me 15 minutes, I'm going to give myself half an hour. That extra 15 minutes is a wonderful self preservation. What that really means is giving oneself rest is a very, very powerful quotient on one's life. Life without rest is a life that's going to end up in tears. Rest is absolutely essential. We've said this before. Your heart goes beep, rest, beep, rest. It makes sense, therefore, that our lives should be just like you say on the highway, I'm going to stop over for thing, I'm going to have a rest stop. We do the same thing. I think that's a reasonable give yourself that rest. So
Yeah,
we've
and
talked
I think
about vision, we've talked about experience, we've talked about the other people on the road. And I'm really waiting for you to hit me with a sledgehammer and saying, but what is my destination in life?
well, before we hit that, but I
Yeah.
was going to say too, I also think like over the last several decades, we've glorified being busy with being successful. That means that you're actually doing something that's valuable. If you're busy and you have no downtime and you just don't have time for that rest, we've glorified that to mean that that means success. That means that you're important. That means that you're valuable. That means that you're driven, for no pun
Yeah.
intended. And I
Mhm.
think that's the wrong approach. I think we need to go first full circle and go back to where it was important to have that rest.
Bingo.
Yeah,
And I
we've
mean, if you think about it, that
driven that into
person,
people's
can you
heads.
imagine? Can you imagine going into what is it called? Traffic circles. I think your parents might have known them as
Well, I know traffic
roundabouts.
circles, and I know people here do not know how to use traffic circles.
Okay, well, okay. Now, don't get onto that. No, no, that's
That's a
Sarah.
whole other podcast.
That's another podcast. But you know one thing? Can you imagine going into a traffic circle, or as they call them in Europe, the roundabout?
Mhm.
But can you imagine? I'm so busy, I'm going round and round and round the roundabout. In fact, I'm going faster and faster and faster. That's not getting you anywhere.
No.
So, in other words, this business of stopping to see which exit do you want to take, this idea, just the way you've described it, is without the rest, without those pauses, you are not going to be a successful driver and
Mhm.
certainly not a successful lifer. So, do you think we should get to the destination?
Yes, please.
Okay. The destination for all of us is hope. That's not said idly. That is said from the deepest of all of us, from body, mind, and soul. There is no higher calling than hope.
Mm.
Because when you have hope, you think about when you go on your trip, you actually hope to get there. That's your
Right.
starting gate. So hope is actually in the driver's seat to start with. But when you say my destination is hope, what you're doing is you're taking yourself out of the present and giving yourself an opportunity to match or to reach your potential.
Mm.
The world today is full of, and I'll say the word very slowly, hopelessness, meaning there's less hope than there used to be.
Right.
I think we should restore the concept of hope. And the concept of restoring the hope isn't a sort of just waving a flag and putting some sort of stanchion on your car. It's actually to do with recognizing that we have a right to be hopeful. I think we have a duty to be hopeful. And I think life is spelt much better when we can say, I am hopeful.
Mhm.
Let's get ourselves onto that highway. Call it
Agreed.
in fact, we won't call it the highway, we'll call it the hope way.
Mm.
That's where we'll end off.
And Jeremy,
I rest my case.
thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.